Hey everyone, and welcome to the podcast. Today, I'm going to be interviewing Sadiq. So, I've been following Sadiq for quite a while, and he has a very interesting story with selling on Amazon and then transitioning into other businesses. Sadiq, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yes, sir. I appreciate you having me on, Noah. My name's Sadiq. I'm 21 years old from Pennsylvania. I started selling on Amazon around coming up on 3 years now. August 2022 is when I first got started. Before that, I was sneaker reselling all through high school. And yeah, I always had like an entrepreneurial background. I was selling candy in the eighth grade halls and all that stuff. So it was like just a natural progression of just wanting to make money in, non-traditional ways. And that's what I've done.
Were you ever caught selling the candy?
Yeah, but I never got in trouble.
Oh, really? I used to sell soda, and I think one time someone said like I was selling Coke, and then they decided to drug test me and like go through my locker, and then they see that I'm selling soda, and that was like a whole thing in high
Oh my
school.
God. That's insane.
So yeah, life. I was that toughened me for like the Amazon bans and everything that was happening. I've always had adversity as an entrepreneur. I didn't realize that you were 21. So how long have you been selling on Amazon, and when did you kind of get started with e-commerce in general?
So started selling August 2022. So we're coming up on 3 years now, end of this upcoming summer. And I started like the online space end of eighth grade. I was Amazon to eBay drop shipping. So I would like find like whatever's selling hot on Amazon, list it up for eBay for a little bit more. And I didn't really make a ton of money. I started that Q4 in that October, November. I didn't make a ton of money. But when that December hit, like I was selling like Fortnite Durburger guns left and right. I probably made like 500 or 600 bucks, but like I don't know, maybe I was 14 or 15 at the time. So it felt like $1 million. So
And what got you started with Amazon, or what kind of made you transition towards FBA?
yeah, so right after like the drop shipping stuff, I moved over to sneakers. I just stumbled upon somebody's YouTube video of like him what's called Burt flipping. So you just find unhyped sneakers, basically just OA, and you're just selling it on eBay, StockX, and Go and make a profit there. But the issue with that is we made a lot of money a lot like really fast because people had stimulus checks, people were shopping like crazy because it was during the COVID time. But when it started to slow down in 2021, 2022, I saw a couple of my buddies hop over to Amazon and I just decided to go jump in with them because I saw people putting up like a ton of numbers and I knew the volume over there was pretty crazy.
And speaking of numbers, do you mind just telling the audience kind of what you've done, especially in a 2 year span, which I think is absolutely crazy?
Yeah, so year one, I did, or the first calendar year, so 2023, I did close to a million. I did 900K the first year. And then last year, I did 1.7 million. And then hopefully this year is around three and a half ish.
That's crazy. And do you see yourself continuing? Because I know with the Amazon space, all cylinders seem to be firing across, Amazon's numbers. Everyone's saying they're growing, but of course, if you're on the OA side on Twitter and everything, it seems like
Yeah.
the sky is falling. So, where do you see the business going in general, as well as for you?
There's still a ton of opportunities, and I'm leaning more and more into like the hard gated brands that I do have because I do kind of have an aged account. It's not that old compared to some guys on Twitter or Instagram or whatever, but I definitely do have a bunch of brands that newbies can't get. I'm leaning there a lot more. I'm honestly, I don't know if I'm bullish on it. I definitely believe there's a ton of opportunity for me to like squeeze with what I have in my store.
Are you diversifying at all?
So that's why I joined you guys' Walmart group, I think last night. I'm selling a little bit on Walmart, but it's just the stuff I can't sell on Amazon. So I've had the account open for several months. I'm just selling stuff that I can't sell here and there, not doing much numbers at all, really. But no, I'm not really diversified. Like,
Yeah, I mean, you don't have to be.
yeah, 99% of my revenue is Amazon.
Right. I think a lot of people they start it could hurt you more than it can help you. Especially like if you're doing well on Amazon. I think Walmart is a great supplement marketplace and kind of what you're
Yeah.
doing if you're just selling liquidated stuff or stuff that you're gated and anything like that. That's also a really good use for it, especially in the beginning. Great segue, by the way. Shout out PriceLink, who is my software sponsor of today's podcast. Go
Yep.
ahead and check it out. I mean, you have already Amazon selling there for 2 years, doing well. And are you kind of just like going to push that as far as you can? Are you working anything outside of e-commerce? Because I know a lot of people kind of now I've seen a lot of people do Toro. I've seen a lot of people do other businesses, but at the same time, it's going to be a trade-off of time versus money. Yes, you could always get VAs to do everything, but you're still going to have some hand in the business.
Yeah, I definitely am running other businesses. I have an education company where I help people out as well, but I'm also looking to start a private label pretty soon as well. And that splits off the focus from like the main Amazon store, but I also have like three killer VAs that pretty much run everything. And it's my job just to look bigger picture for the company. If we need more cash flow, do I get loans or whatever, managing credit like cash flow and credit card statements and all that stuff, and then finding these new opportunities to then pass over to them. So that's pretty much what I do in the store now. And then I'm trying to diversify the income at least a little bit to the education company and private label.
Yeah. So I think that we've laid a great groundwork kind of for your picture and where you're seeing and your outlook really on this space. The question I love to ask to all of my guests is if you were just starting over, and which is,
Mhm.
I think, easier for you than my previous guest, who Tracy. She's been selling
Yeah.
on for 27 years. So if you were just starting over and you had no knowledge of Amazon, obviously you have a little bit with hindsight, but like, where do you see yourself looking forward now? What's the opportunity in your eyes for people who are just getting started?
Just getting started. It depends on how much bankroll they have too. Because if they don't have a lot of money, I would just send them right to RA, make those like high ROI flips, FBM it so they get their turnover and capital like as fast as humanly possible. If they're lower capital, if they're higher capital, I would jump right into OA and I would just try to source your face off until you get really really good. I don't really have a great answer for that, but I don't think it's. I think people overcomplicate it way more than they like should.
Yeah, I definitely just like to ask that question to see kind of what people think of. I know a lot of people who are doing Amazon are now focusing on TikTok, so it's just interesting to see kind of what's out there. You
Yeah.
mentioned capital. Was that ever an issue for you?
In the early days, yeah, just because a lot of my money was still in sneaker reselling, like StockX Go and eBay inventory. So I was just working with what I had. I think I started like 3 or 5 grand. And then as I started seeing some success with Amazon, so like that August to December of 2022, I was just like selling there as like another channel. And then when I saw like December, like I basically sold out of all of my inventory in like less than a week. And I'm like, great, what do I do now? Right. Because I was FBAing everything. I don't even know if I knew about FBM or if like that was even like a popular thing at the time. But then that January, I decided, okay, I need to go all in on Amazon. So I started liquidating like the inventory for the other apps, and then I started putting that capital towards Amazon. Initially, it was kind of a constraint, but it's just because the money was somewhere else.
But you didn't like go out and take a loan. It's just kind of you
No.
adjusted your business to your capital that you had at the time.
Yeah, and then when I was like really trying to like Chad scale, I guess you could say from like the 25, 30, 40K a month all the way up to like 100, then I started using like the Amex Plum and some 0% APRs.
And when did you kind of have like that aha moment on Amazon when you found your first product? Because I've seen a lot of your screenshots. I think that you scaled probably the quickest out of most people that I see. Was it just like you came in running with your sneaker knowledge and that really helped you transition? Or did you just have like a day where you found a great product, you found just something that worked or something that clicked?
A lot of the knowledge from OA or from the other business helped me a lot in OA, but then I also had a ton of friends that were doing RA, getting like ridiculous margins. So I think that's why I was able to scale up from like the 0 to like 30K a month, which is like I did that in like 1 month after committing, which for most people some of them take like years to do that. But I just saw a bunch of my buddies just hit RA. They were getting crazy margins of like, okay, let me go check out the Nike outlet, check out the Adidas outlet and see what works. And then when I finally like hit the first couple of outlets, I was maxing out on 30 pairs each Nike store. I eventually started bringing my buddies with me to get more pairs per day. I would learn the sales cycles and all that stuff. And then once I figured out what worked there, I just did it as much as possible.
So you got started with RA rather than OA.
Yeah, just because that's what I was doing for the other business. And then I heard from my friends that RAs, like the margins are way better, which they are. So I switched over like 50-50 or like 70-30 RA for like the first couple of months.
And currently, are you doing mostly RA or are you doing mostly OA?
No, I'm 100% OA or like 90% OA, like 10% wholesale.
Gotcha. So wholesale introduction, I believe, is new, right?
Yeah, it's nowhere within like the last 6 months, I would say.
Are you looking to do more brand direct? Or I guess for our listeners who are out, hopefully listening to this, right? So you started with RA, that's retail arbitrage for people who are not familiar. That's kind of where you shop in store. And that is more seen as beginner friendly because you can get the product right away. And you also kind of have a competitive advantage to just regionality for items and prices. And then OA is online arbitrage, where you're purchasing from different retailers online. And then wholesale is where you're purchasing either from brand direct, which means like from the brand, or distributors. So when you transition to wholesale, are you mostly just purchasing from distributors, or are you looking to do more brand direct?
Distributors and like store connections, I guess. Like there's small enough like regional stores that will just sell to you. So that's kind of what I'm doing. I don't really like I'm not really interested in the brand direct stuff, to be honest.
No, I hear that it comes with its own pain
Yeah.
points. I think it's just the new kid on the block, so everyone's talking about it. But so the regional store thing is actually really interesting. So I sold funeral urns. That was my first business that I had on Amazon. And one thing that I did was I would partner up with different funeral homes and other local places to go ahead and sell the brands that they carried. Are you kind of talking about that where you partner with like, I guess, brick and mortar stores, or you mean like regional stores that will then sell you the brands instead of that retail price?
Like the regional stores who like will allow you to place bulk or POs through emails or
Gotcha.
whatever, just because they want more business.
Do you just go ahead and find that on their website? Do you contact these regional stores?
So I have two. One I asked just because they were just letting me order whatever I wanted, and the other one actually emailed me to say if like you want to place POs or like big bulk orders, this is the number to contact. So I just contacted them there.
That's a baller feeling right there when they reach out to you.
Yeah.
Do you see yourself kind of being able to scale up with that, or do you think there's like a ceiling on? Because I haven't really heard a lot of people talk about that regional stuff. I've ordered some products from BJ's myself and everything, but
Mhm.
you don't really have like pricing command, and it's kind of you face a lot of cyclicality, kind of like OA.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm gonna scale it, but it's definitely a good way to diversify and still get units through the store. So I'm just using it for that reason. In terms of like wholesale, I'm not even looking to scale wholesale. It's like those things just happened to me. Like they just landed on my desk, I guess, because like one of the retailers emailed me, and then the other one I was like, let me just take a shot in the dark, and they let me.
Yeah.
So
In terms of kind of like product hunting or product research, I think is most people figure is the hardest part about it. In my opinion, it's
yeah.
actually like logistics, capital, and everything else is really just going to be your biggest issue as an Amazon seller or even as an e-commerce seller. What's your current thought process, or how are you doing product research? Do you have a VA do it? Are you doing it? And also, if you don't mind going over your software stack.
Yeah. So in terms of the day-to-day sourcing from the normal retailers that we've been hitting for the last couple of years, my VAs do all of that. I don't really source too much. I don't even do the checkouts most of the time. It's just me approving it on like proposed buy sheet. In terms of like loops and like newer retailers or like things that maybe I see on Twitter or like on TikTok that are like blowing up, like so Stanley's a good example of that, or just things that are like popular in like the actual public. I try to keep an eye out for that stuff and try to find new opportunities for the store. That way I can relay that message over to the VAs. So it's like my whole job is just a bigger picture stuff, trying to find new loops and more ways to drive revenue. So that's the only way I source right now. The rest of the buying and the normal purchasing and sourcing is done by them. And then the software stacks, SalaRamp, Keepa, that might be it for the day to day. So and
It's a
smart.
very lean stack.
Well, you mean like for the whole store, or for just for sourcing?
I mean, just for sourcing, I think that like I know Miles and I think so you guys popularized like just Cellaramp and Keepa. I
Yeah.
was looking at my stack that, and I've obviously paid too much. I think I have RevSeller and Asenzen and
Oh
Cellaramp.
my
So I
god.
really need
Yeah.
all of that. I definitely envy a lean stack. I need to cut a lot of that.
Yeah, for sourcing, yeah, that's all I use is SellerApp and Keepa. For like that overall store, I definitely have more software.
And I think you once told me that it's mostly a manual, right? You're not really employing anything fancy. People are going to say like different fancy terms, but when I asked you, you're like, no, just manual.
Yeah, just manual. And then for the VAs, if I have like, there's certain people in this space where you just know they're absolute killers and like they're clearly running a great store. That's when I'll have like the VAs reverse source from them every now and then. They're probably working on like the bigger picture stuff like me. And if they find a loop or they find something that's like pretty popular and like taken off, it's like we want to be there to get some of that profit too. So that's why they reverse source.
For sure. So I guess this is actually a question that I've always wondered is how much mental effort and time will you put into reverse sourcing? Let's say you find someone, it's OA, right? You're able to discern that it's not wholesale, it's not private label. How much time will you put into trying to figure out that loop? Because maybe they have like a specific way they get coupons or anything like that. Will you just kind of like set like I'm going to figure out for a week or whatever. If I can't figure it out, maybe I'll try and like, loop back here, no pun intended, for maybe it's a sale that happens. Kind of like, how will you devote trying to storefront stock them?
It depends on like the type of product. So if it's like a 3,000 monthly sold, I'm gonna try to spend like a couple hours or a couple days or a couple like whatever it takes to be honest. And then I have like friends who are like really, really, really good loop hunters too. Like so Steven, I talk to multiple times a day on FaceTime. He's probably the best guy in the space at that, to be honest. Like there's very few things we can't crack, if I'm being honest. But if I know for a fact it's OA or if it's like a very, very, very good product with a lot of movement and a lot of volume, it could take me a year. I don't care. I'm gonna figure it out.
So your team, I mean, it sounds like you rely heavily on them, which I think a lot of sellers they struggle with is to find those VAs and to find people that you can trust and automate to that level. How long did it take you to kind of find a VA that you were able to go ahead and say, I'm going to leave one of the most important parts of my business, which is sourcing, with you,
Mhm.
and I'm going to let you handle that?
It honestly took like a whole year. So like my initial hire for the first VA was an admin VA and then was so small. I was probably doing like 40, 50K a month at the time, but I was sharing it with my buddies. It was relatively inexpensive. We didn't have 8 hours a day worth of admin tasks to do. So we had to do something else. Decided to teach her sourcing. And then I would say after like the first like 3 or 4 months, she started like picking up and like actually having like, if she would put like 10 leads on the sheet, maybe we'd buy like, 3 or 4. Then month 6 came, we might buy like 4 or 5, maybe 6. Right. And then like over time, I would say like at the year mark is like when I started buying a lot of her stuff. As I kept scaling and scaling and scaling the revenue and the profits, I got more VAs. They just work together now. And I just give them all like the SOPs and all the recorded calls that I did with the initial VA to help them out. And then I just run one call a week with them now.
Is there like a hierarchy there, or they each kind of source for themselves and they kind of are on the same level? Because I know a lot of people will have like an admin VA and then different VAs that oversee them.
Yeah, I just have an admin VA who does like a lot of like the order tracking, seller report cost of goods, email sorting, like a lot of the busy work. And that probably only takes her like 4 hours a day because she's still split with one of my buddies. And the rest of the time she is just sourcing. And then I have a head of sourcing who's like an absolute monster. I would argue she's better than 95% of Twitter at sourcing and Instagram, whatever. She's insane. So she's head of sourcing. And then there's one girl below her, Angela, which is like her in real life friend. So it's like nice for them to hop on sourcing calls or whatever and hang out and find a ton of stuff. Like, cause they find a crazy amount. Like Memorial Day weekend is this weekend. They have like way more leads than I can even buy. I don't have enough capital. Angela is like the sourcing support is the term we gave her. Job title, I guess.
Yeah, and you mentioned that you're sharing. So all three, I guess not all three, but most of your VAs, you're sharing the leads with your group. And how does that work with a cook group? Do you each say like, I'm going to buy a certain amount here? Is it based on like the volume determining the listings that you'll share?
So it kind of was like that when we were smaller. The two sourcers are just mine now, and then the admin is still split just because it's admin work. I don't really, nothing too crazy there. It's just data entry. So all the
Right.
sources are mine now.
Gotcha. And of that, so in terms of like where they're based out of and how you hire, do you hire out of the Philippines? I know that's very common. People have
Yeah.
different areas.
So all three of the Philippines, the first initial hire I made was the admin. I got her from Online Jobs PH. And then the second and third hire I actually got from my buddy Jack, who has like a VA hiring agency now. So they come pre-trained with like seller, like they're brand new. So like that's the biggest thing. I don't want them to have any experience. And then Jack has, agency or whatever. They run them through SellerAmp, Keepa, like the top 100 stores, what coupons come with it. They just give them to me basically with enough knowledge to go find me like 5 to 10 leads a day. And then it's my job to build upon that, which is not that hard because I have the SOPs, I have the video modules, and I can meet with them 1 or 2 times a week. And they're pretty much up to speed in like maybe like 3 months, 2 months.
And do you have any horror stories from virtual assistants? So I personally had to let one go that
Yeah.
I believe she was playing like Fortnite or something for 6 hours a day.
I just have not a horror story. It wasn't even that bad, but I hired a guy on for trial. So whenever I hire them, this is from Online Jobs PH before I went to the agency. So like right after the first one that was good, the admin, I hired him on as a sourcer. He was doing all right. He was doing well, but then he's logged into my SellerAmp and my Keepa. So he was finding like I would look at his sheet and he wasn't on the sheet during his hours. But by the time like his shift was done, he would have like 10 or 12 or 15 leads on the sheet. But then I went to the SellerAmp history and this dude like looked at 2 products in the entire time. So I knew he was either like working for someone else or using a leads list. So like that was the only time I like basically got scammed. But I mean, he was still on trial week for like the first 2 weeks. I wasn't even too worried.
Yeah,
So
I think that's a
let him
lot
go.
of people worry about that. There's a lot of like double dipping and everything. I also have the same mentality as you, as I like to. I've never gone the agency route, but I've definitely when I'm hiring, I like to hire people who are brand new to the space. Because if you're a really good sourcer, there's chances are either people aren't gonna let you go, or you could be sending those leads to 4 different people and like quadruple dipping. So there's we joked about it with another friend I have is that like if I found a really good sourcer and I had to let them go for whatever reason, or they were, they had to leave, I'd literally pay them like $500 a month just to not work with anyone else. Cause like, that's kind of the level that it is. So for your size and operation, 3 VAs is still a pretty lean way to do it, and kind of the way to do the business. Now just focusing more on the coaching side, since you've transitioned to that, kind of where do you see yourself taking that? Do you see yourself sticking with only coaching for Amazon? Do you see yourself taking on more students and growing it? Kind of what's that landscape looking like?
Yeah, I just actually restarted it recently. We got a couple guys in. I'm going to scale them up is the goal there. But I like taking guys who have already like have sales, maybe like 10, 20K a month. Because at that point, they definitely do have the foundation. And then it's just my job to like give them some more sourcing methods, give them some more tips and tricks, help them scale up efficiently with like prep centers, VAs, hiring, all that stuff to get them to like the 50, 100 grand a month. Because it's like all the groundwork's already laid because they did the work for it. And now it's the fun part of it's like just scaling. And I think that's what I'm decent at least. So that's the goal with the coaching, just to help people scale up their store in the most efficient way possible without making all the mistakes of how do I even hiring too late, like just a bunch of things that just will save them a lot of time. The whole VA journey with me just took way too long. I think like I should have I don't even know. It was just a headache. It was a mess. Like to get to where we are now, it took like I've had my first VA 2.5 years ago. It should not have taken that long to get to where I was in the business with outsourcing and all that stuff. And then like for prep, I was self-prepping for over a year straight. Like that should have not happened either. But yeah, always still for my store is still like the primary focus, but just helping people on the side is what I'm, trying to scale up a little bit more now.
Going back to the scaling point, I mean, that is something that I think most sellers, I myself also kind of fall into that trap, is you don't set yourself up for success for scaling. So like I just hired a prep center. I used to have a warehouse. I had a warehouse for about a year. I was doing most of the prep in my garage. My mom still is not happy about that. We still got some items. So I'm sure you know
Yeah.
how that is. But like most people who get into this space, you kind of have like different constraints. So either it's going to be capital, next one could be time, next one could be products. Like there's going to be so many different bottlenecks. But something that my friend said is that like you can have a road and everything after that is green light. But if you don't fix that red light, you're never going to be able to go. So like from the beginning, you kind of have to be taking this business, even if it's going to be a year or 2 years out, you have to be setting it up for the ability to outsource, whether that's like from your first day is just record yourself or note down exactly what you did, what coupons you used. People don't save that data. And then having to go ahead and find that coupon is like an extra 5 minutes, something as simple as that. So since you had been in both operating the business as well as also a educator, which definitely gives you a unique perspective, kind of like how do you recommend people who are getting started to both learn the ropes as well as to set themselves up to outsource?
Yeah, you definitely have to learn the ropes, even if you're in like a tax state or whatever for the prep center, like just to get like some shipments under your belt just so you know how everything works. But you need to get rid of that like ASAP, because if you're in like a tax state with 7-8%, it's like you're losing money and you're not able to compete with some of these other guys just because you're in a tax state. And you don't even have to do the work anymore. You get to save money and you don't have to prep anything, put more time to sourcing. A lot of people I know that are like still like the beginning stages of like 10 to 20K a month, they're still doing that. But it's like either they don't know any better or they're just stubborn about it. It's like you just have to learn to let go a little bit more over time just to hit the numbers you want to hit, because you can't do a lot of this yourself. You can if you like chat scale it, but there's going to be a lot of like burnout, one, and then two, it's like you need people. You need help, whether that's like a group of friends to help you source like I have, or a team of VAs to run the day-to-day like I have, or like a prep center to package and prep the stuff, because you make no money on that and you actually get to save money if you're in a tax state. There's just a bunch of different things that you need to take care of if you want to hit the scale or whatever in the future. But if you want to run this business at like 10, 20K a month and just pay your bills or whatever, that's cool too. I tell people that all the time. You don't need to go for 100K months, 200K months if you have a job you like or a family or whatever, because it does take a lot of capital and it's hard to pull that money out as you're scaling.
Yeah, and it can also be risky. I think a lot of people, they're comfortable at that 10 to 20K a month, because if you get Section 3, it's not as risky as like, I've seen some people have like 200 grand tied up in Amazon, which I can't even imagine having that happen. But you mentioned also kind of like sourcing together friends. And I know I've heard a lot when Miles talk about that. How do you find those people? I know probably being an educator and being in that space helps, but like, how do you get to that level where, you say like, okay, I trust you. I'm going to send you leads. You're sending leads back. Is it like just a group of people? Is it a couple of people? How does that work?
Yeah, I think it just came from posting from on social media a lot. Like if you go look at my Twitter, I think I have like 6,000 tweets or something crazy. I'm on Instagram. I was just posting what I did because I knew eventually I would find a group of people. Just because that's what Miles and Warner preached when I was like getting going like 2.5 years ago. Like post on socials, find your group or whatever. So that's what I was just trying to do. So I have a ton of tweets, documented basically every single thing possible in the early days on Twitter. Met a lot of cool people, shared a lot of leads, made a lot of money together with certain people. But this business is like very high turnover. So like your same group is not going to be the same over time. But eventually you're going to go group to group to group to group, and you're going to be left with people who are like ultra serious about the business and they're not going to quit no matter what. And when you get that, you're like golden. You don't need to do any more work. So I don't really tweet that much anymore. I don't post on Instagram anymore because I don't really need to, in terms of like finding a group of people to run the Amazon business with, because I have them. Like I have Steven, I have like Abe, and I have a lot of other guys who are like at scale now, who I started with, like who I got in the group with like 2 years ago, and they're doing extremely well and they're not going anywhere.
That's a great nugget right there. Is even though you have that turnover, is like if you also would kind of, to your point for the Twitter, if you have that track record, if you have that proof, you're always gonna be able to find your people.
Yeah, because it's like people want to be friends with people who are doing cool stuff. So you hop on these Zoom calls. If you vibe with the person, you might text them more. You might send them some leads back and forth. And then eventually you guys are talking every day, hopping on Zooms every day. And then when you get into that like flow, then you're set.
For sure. I'm still a one-man band. I have like 2 other people I source with, but I definitely, with wholesale, it's a lot easier because you just, you have your spreadsheets and it's just you and your spreadsheets and that's it. But OA is definitely a different beast in that. I think, so Chad from the Buy Box, me and him found a loop, and like, I don't really know that much about like, building Chrome extensions or automation and anything like that. And he built a Chrome extension that automates the entire checkout process. So like we're able to go ahead and, instead of doing like, 1 checkout every minute, we can get in 5 or 6 checkouts. So like you just leverage other people's skills and you're able to kind of like, maybe they don't bring you leads, but they could do something else that just
Yeah, for sure.
makes it super easy.
Yeah, 100%.
So I think we're gonna call it there. I appreciate you for
Okay.
coming on, and just to land the plane here, where can people find you? How can they connect?
Yeah, so it's Sadiq Wahab on Instagram. That's pretty much all I use now. And if you shoot me a DM or have any questions, I'll 100% respond to you. So
Yeah, and if they want to apply for coaching or anything, are you currently taking on students, or can they message you?
yeah, just shoot me a message. I'm taking on people.
Perfect. All right. Thank you so much for coming on.
Cool. Appreciate you for having me.